we have anybody new today? Hi, what's your name? I guess you in the back.
I'm Rachel.
Rachel? Rachel, do you have any bees?
I do have bees.
Okay.
I have 2 hives. I'm taking the beginner's class.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's awesome. And where do you live?
I live near Phoenixville.
Oh, okay, so I am doing the beginner's class also, and I am also near Phoenixville, so we'll have to talk. Yeah, I'm in Spring City, so right outside of Phoenixville. Yeah, cool. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Phil, live next to Longwood Gardens.
What was that?
I'm Phil, I live next to Longwood Gardens.
Oh, cool, that's a nice place to live with bees. Cool. Do you have bees now?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Next, yeah?
Dan?
Dan, nice to meet you. Where are you from?
Valley.
Okay, and do you have any bees? Okay, cool. Yeah?
My name's Forrest. I do have bees. I live in Sashburn.
Cool. Anyone else? Yeah?
Mark, starting the beginner course, I do not have bees.
Okay, cool.
Coach.
Awesome. Cool, well, welcome everyone. It's a beautiful day to start here. We should always meet here. Perfect, okay. All right, we're good. So, Mark, you're up.
I'm up.
What this thing?
Without you. Yeah. I wonder a bit if you could even just leave it on the table.
Just leave it on the table?
It's actually so far fine.
Okay,
Not saying that you were too loud.
next slide. Thank you. So we'll do this in, I don't know, I won't do it, George, but I'll do something probably in the middle. So again, the apprentice leads, we've got, or the committee leads, we've got lots of folks. I want to thank Lauren for helping out with the beginner's course now. She raised her hand, and I appreciate that. And then Monica is going to need help for the picnic, and we'll touch on the picnic here in a second. That's next month. So we're 1 month out from getting that done. And then, oops, I changed that. This must have come from a different slide. Charlie Coulter is no longer the Queen team lead. That's Mike Joe, who is, raise your hand, Mike, who was here earlier. He ran away, okay. Run like a man.
He's going to catch swarm right now.
Going to catch it. He's been a swarm catcher, that's for sure. And Sean, I just saw you somewhere. Okay, I do have a bottle of that Bee Gone or Bee Away, a little bottle that I poured out for you. So see me after. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, we're still looking for someone to be our website administrator who might have some SEO experience. And I'll take the third line out because Lauren's already stood up to do that. Thank you very much. And then think about joining up with the conference committee for next year because we're already starting. We're really starting to start the planning for the next year's conference. We've been thinking about it. We hadn't done anything until now. So, all right. Next month we're at East Goshen Park for our annual picnic. It's in the Veterans Pavilion, same place as last year for those who attended. For those that didn't, just look for the Veterans Pavilion. Easy to get to, easy in, easy out. If you want to help out with the refreshments, thanks for those who brought stuff. Yvonne, you said it was shrimp and grits is in the crock pot over here, so thank you for that. Susie, you brought donuts, and then some Dunkin' coffee, so it's over here. Thank you very much for doing that. Let Susie or Donna know if you've got topics that you want to have discussed at an upcoming meeting or that you want to present. You don't have to present, but let us know what you're looking for, and that helps us plan better to meet your needs. And then finally, did you know that we rented equipment from the club? It was surprising to me that last night's Bee Chat, we were talking and someone said, yeah, I think I might have to go buy an extractor. Well, how many frames are you going to extract? 2? Why don't you just 2? Not 6, not 15, 2. So we have 2 extractors currently. I'm probably going to auction the little one at the club auction, but the big one that we have is a Maxant. They're both hand crank and pretty darn efficient. so that's available. The refractometer is available. You go to the storefront on the website. The website, by the way, is not working very well over the last 2 days, to the point of it timed out before it ever got to log on in a couple of cases. So and they know that. They're working on it. They're trying to fix it. But go to the storefront. You can rent it, and then the storefront folks will get a notification, and then we'll tell you where the equipment is hidden. Stored. It might be in the trailer. It might be at the house. I've got the refractometer at my house, so we'll figure that out. All right, next slide, please. So Diane Campbell passed away a month or so ago, and she has a lot of equipment that we're going to be auctioning off. Next slide. Unfortunately, her granddaughter was doing granddad a favor by taking care of the extractor. So she put it up on Marketplace and sold the extractor and the extracting tank and so all of that won't be available from Diane's stash of equipment. But there are 2 and maybe 3 long Langstroth hives, 2 that are complete, ready to go, and 1 that is just the box frame, so you'd have to build a stand for it and do some additions. So if you're interested in long Langstroth, it's 2 of them are in pretty nice shape. Next. Okay, and then we've got this stuff that's going to be available from Paul. Has a friend who said, here, take all this beekeeping stuff. So the smoker and frames and hive stand, and the prices there are what you would pay for them on the street. Not on the street, but go to Better Bee or Man Lake, and that's what you pay. I've got a 15-gallon honey keg that I'm going to be auctioning. I'm putting a reserve price. It's got to sell for $500. It's worth almost $1,000 bucks. I think it's $950 online. And then George, you have a flow hive.
Yeah, somebody just dropped it off at my house one day.
Right. And when he says drop it off, I mean literally.
Dropped off at Mark's house and not my house.
Literally, he came out and there's the picnic table by the garage, and it was there. So we just dropped it off. So that'll be up for auction. And we've got a couple other. There's a bee suit that was lightly worn by the manager over at Historic Sugartown. I think he took the beginner's course, or worked for the beginner's course, and said, okay, at the end of it, said, yeah, beekeeping is not for me, which is the right answer, rather than spending thousands on all the equipment. Yes, sir.
What are we doing if people have stuff they want to auction?
If you want to auction stuff at the auction, bring it in, but it's a donation to the CCBA. We're not auctioning your stuff for you. It's you give it to us, and we'll auction it off. And we keep the money. We'll give you a receipt saying, and just like you would at Goodwill, you have provided something, and there you go. Which, for those of you who are able to, you can write it off on your taxes. Thank you, George. Okay, for the picnic, we are going to need help getting the equipment from Diane's home. I think I've worked it out with her son that they're going to store it until the day before or day of, so we can go early morning, load it all up. It's probably 2 pickup truckloads of stuff that needs to be picked up there. And then from Paul Lisco, who just had ankle surgery a week ago, so he's basically in a walking cast for a month or more. And then we got to get the trailer that's on the back of my truck right now out there to the picnic site. So if somebody is in the Scout Center area and has a trailer hitch that's able to tow the trailer, that would be great. So I don't have to go up from Willistown to there to get it. And then some folks to work with Monica on the picnic supplies, the activities, all that sort of thing. And everybody who comes to the event, it's $5 per person or $10 per family, and it comes with a free t-shirt. Look at that. Now, it does say 2022 conference on it, but that's okay. We're going to be bringing cloth pens so you can write whatever on the t-shirt that you want.
And registration online?
Registration online through Club Express, and if you go to the event, it's there. We'll be sending out a notification to everybody for that. So, and part of the reason for the $5 is we're going to be providing the burgers and dogs and and I think chicken, and that's not cheap. So if you pay the $5 in, you paid for your meal, and if you don't show up, that's okay, because it's not like we bought enough for 200 people and only 100 people showed up. We got all this extra food, we'll take it to the shelters or people take it home, whatever. I just don't, I want a little skin in the game. That's the only reason. All right, there's another event coming up, which is the Pennsylvania State Beekeepers and Penn State Extension Summer Picnic and Bee Extravaganza, I think is what Robin is calling it. So it is a picnic on Saturday around noontime, and then the extravaganza begins that afternoon, and then 10 to 5 on Sunday, and it's a ton of different kinds of events, but it's actual in-hive work, it's drone congregation area, it's just a ton of different activities. So if you can do that, you go up for the day or go up for 2 days, whatever you want. There are the blocker rooms available at the Ramada at a reasonable price. So it is up at State College, so it's a trucking up to get there and trucking up to get back. So there you go. Next slide. Now we're into mites. More mites. Oh God, more mites. Anybody done mite washes yet this year? Shout your numbers out. Terrible? Okay. Mite count? Great?
Only one.
One? Okay. At my home apiary, the worst one had 4 mites, which is 1.3%. At Bondsville Mill, we did the mite count on the hive, and it was at same 1.3%. I think it was four mites in 300. And then at Sugartown, we had one hive that had 6. That's a 2% count. So what should we do? Should we do anything? Should we take immediate action? Should we immediately dose it with all sorts of different chemicals, or what should we do? And so we'll keep with that in mind, think about that as we go through today's presentation. So this is kind of the IPM pyramid. Everybody knows what IPM stands for, Integrated Pest Management. I knew that you knew that because you said it and I heard it. So Integrated Pest Management. So you start at the top. No, you don't start at the top. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. But during the presentation, we're going to start at the top and work our way down, so that the best thing to do will be at the last, because the last thing you heard is the thing you'll remember. Yeah. All right. So Amitraz is that hard chemical. It's and we'll go through each of these in the presentation. So we got Amitraz at the top. The hard chemical can be it's very effective, but can be dangerous to us as people. So do be careful with that. Then we got thymol, formic acid, and oxalic acids. All of those are the soft chemicals. They're natural chemicals. They're not made in a lab. You can go out and get it in lots and lots of different ways and forms. Then you've got the mechanical. We're going to kill it by physical means, and that might be mite trapping and drone brood. Cut that drone brood off as soon as it's capped and feed it to the chickens, or throw it away, whatever you're going to do with it. Give it to somebody with chickens. We love you for it. My chickens love you for it. Or we can do some cultural things, and I think Ed's going to talk about some of those cultural things of the resistant stock, and I think George, you're going to talk about brood breaks. So we're going to kind of mix it up a little bit in there. Next slide. All right, so Apivar. They are these slow release plastic strips. You can see the plastic strips sticking up out of the packages. Hopefully the packages came sealed. So when you deal with Apivar, I don't care how old the strips are, you want to be gloved. And I don't mean your leather gloves. I mean nitrile gloves or rubber gloves that are chemical resistant gloves, not 3 mil, but 9 mil. Good heavy duty gloves to deal with this stuff. It is a non-systemic acaricide and insecticide. It is used in veterinary medicine all over the place. Controls ticks, mites, and lice, which is why varroa mites are affected by it, because it works that class. They use it in dogs a lot, but it's highly toxic to cats and horses. Didn't know that until I looked it up. I was like, wow. So don't feed them to your cats or your horses. Accidental ingestion, inhalation, or skin absorption can hurt us, and it causes CNS, central nervous system depression, low blood pressure, which would, I guess might be something I'd like, with my blood pressure being generally controlled but high. It can also give you a decreased heart rate, and the problem with that is it can also mimic an organophosphate poisoning, which can be hard to diagnose. So you go into the doc and you're complaining about all these symptoms. They may not figure it out until you finally say, I'm a beekeeper, and well, what do you treat your bees with? And you say amitraz, and they still have no clue. And then you say it's an archaicide, and they go, oh, wait, let me look that up. And they finally figure out that you got attacked by amitraz and not by some other kind of problem. Next slide. So you use one strip for 5 frames of brood. Typically, you're putting 2 strips in and you're putting them in the honey supers, right? No, that's a trick question. You're putting them in the brood box, but you leave the honey supers on, right? No. You get the honey supers off before you put the amitraz in. So you put the amitraz in, you hang them. What I learned from George was the strips come with a hole in the top, and you take a nail, put it through the hole. Don't use that little fold. It's a little fold-out piece in there that, quote, was designed so that you can hang them right on the frames. Every time I've used that little thing, I come back and they're at the bottom of the hive because they fell. So you put a nail. You could use a toothpick. Nails a little firmer. Put it through there. Hang them in the brood chamber, at least 2 frames apart. Leave them in for at least 45 days, but get them out after not later than 56 days. So you don't want to leave them in. This is not something that's good, because what happens after 56 days is there's still a low dose of amitraz that are coming out of these strips. And now the mites that are in your hive become resistant to amitraz. And so the longer you leave them in, the more resistant they become to the amitraz, which is why we have this problem with amitraz-resistant varroa mites. Get them out, throw them away, put them in a plastic bag, throw them in trash, get them gone. Again, when you're handling them, whether it's brand new or 56 days later, use the gloves, protect yourself. And there's a timing on it. You can treat it before the nectar flow, where it can be effective, or in the autumn after the honey's harvested. If you're doing an autumn flow or fall flow, you get a fall flow, then you're not going to be able to retrieve the honey from that fall flow, just as a note there. Okay, positive, it's not temperature sensitive. It's very effective, up in the 90% effective for killing mites, until it isn't. Like you get the amitraz resistant mites, they don't care. So it works until it doesn't work. All right, on the minuses, I might have mentioned using personal protective equipment. Yeah, okay, cool. Honey supers got to be off. So if all of a sudden we get a bunch of rain in the summer and we've got a flow on, that's not honey that you're going to be able to get because you've got amitraz on. And then mite resistance. All right, that's it for that one. And Russ is going to come up and talk to us about formic acid.
All right, so I pirated this information right off the internet. So Formic Pro is a manufacturer of formic acid, MASQS and Formic Pro, and it's for sustaining, using it to sustain varroa control. And Formic Pro is an all-natural product that targets varroa mites where they reproduce under the brood cap. It's manufactured in ready-to-use strips. It features an extended shelf life of 24 months, and there are no storage limitations. So this is what the packaging looks like. You can get a 2-dose pack with 4 strips, 10 dose with 20 strips, 30 dose with 60 strips, and when you open them up, you can see the package you tear it open when you go to use it. Next. So mites. In the wintertime, our hives have very few mites and hopefully none at all. But as the population of the bees starts growing from February, March, it goes from 10,000 in the hive to 30,000 in the hive. And the mites are always following the number of bees that are in the hive, specifically targeting drone cells because they take the longest to emerge once they're capped. So this time of the year, we're in June, your hive can have approximately 40,000 bees in it, and if you look at the red mites, they're approaching 35,000 mites in there. So now's the time of the year where you want to do some mite checks to ensure that you have less than 1% of mites in your 3%, right? 3%? 3%. If you do have more than that, you really need to treat. Next. So the biggest advantage of using formic acid is the fact that it penetrates through the wax cap and it gets into the cells where the mites are not only laid by the original mite, the mites themselves will rebreed inside the cap brood, which creates more mites. So you can have a heavy population of mites really in the drone cells. And as some people have talked about, management, George I think mentioned it, put the drone cells in, as soon as they're capped, take them out, or Mark mentioned it, feed it to the chickens and get rid of it. So with Formic Pro, you can have a 14-day or a 20-day treatment. The choice is up to you how you want to treat. So if you're going to use one strip, you need a minimum of 6 frames of brood in the hive, and you can put on one strip for 10 days, remove it, and leave it on for another 10 days, and then you have the option of removing it from the hive and composting it, or you could leave it in the hive. It's not going to hurt the bees in any way. I'd like to take all that stuff out. So the one strip is going to be a slower dose over a longer period of time. What can happen with Formic Pro, much like the weather we have in the 90s, you cannot treat for mites using Formic Pro when the temperature is that hot. It's got to be 85 degrees or below the initial day of the treatment. So it's less harmful. When I say harmful, I mean your queens can die. I mean that's a possibility. But by using a longer dose for a longer period of time, you don't get all of the formic acid, which actually evaporates and turns into a gas, and that's what penetrates into the cell. Another way to treat your hive is basically you put in 2 strips, and then after 14 days, remove them both. It's a stronger treatment. It's going to kill more mites faster. It just depends on how you want to go about managing your hive for mites. In terms of safety, Mark mentioned wearing thick nitrile gloves. Formic acid, if you were to open up the pack without a respirator on and breathe it, it's going to take your breath away. It's not something that you want to mess around with. So you want to wear your bee suit when you're applying it. You want to wear some goggles just in case if the wind changes the direction. And in this slide you can see you want to be where the wind's blowing at your back. So when you put the strips in the hive, the wind's going to blow it away from you, not directly in your face on your body. Wear a respirator and have water on hand just in case for whatever reason you don't have rubber gloves, you get it on your hive gloves that are leather and you touch your face or something like that, it's gonna burn your skin. So try to avoid getting any contact from a pad and inhaling any vapor. I mentioned earlier that 85 is the top temperature you want to go. That's a small. Do not apply, above 80, sorry. Next. So basically some helpful hints. You need a minimum of 6 brood frames in order to treat with 1 or 2 pads. You want to remove the hive entrance reducer to allow more hive ventilation because again, it's a pad that's wet and the formic acid evaporates. If you have your hive all buttoned up tight, it's going to reach a higher level of concentration in the hive where you could run into, killing your queen or some bees. So if you have a sticky board under your screen bottom board, I'd recommend taking that out so that you've got more airflow coming in. You can also add some supers. Again, this product does not, you can leave your honey on in your hive. So the formic acid's not going to hurt the honey whatsoever. Between the first treatment and the second treatment, whether it's the 2 weeks or the 20 days, you want to wait at least 1 month before you treat your hives again. I mentioned earlier, pads can remain in the hive and you can compost them if you like. It's best if you've got multiple hives to treat them all at once. That way everything gets knocked down all at the same time. And then for more detailed information, you could read the accompanying brochure that comes with the product in the package, or you could go onto the website, just look up Formic Pro, and you could read all about the technical details of the product. Any questions? George? Oh.
Can you use
Howard.
them on nukes?
No.
I wouldn't, no. There's not 6 full frames of bees, right? Brood, there's not 6 full frames of bees.
I tried.
Russ, the 85 degrees, when you put it in, or you have to be able to predict for 20 days it's
No,
not going to be 85?
It's the day you put it in, it should be 85 degrees or less.
All right, you don't have to worry about 2 days later, 3 days later, 14 days later. 3 days? All right.
The issue with it is the higher the temperatures,
More
the
vaporization.
faster the vapor hits the hive. So it's like really, really dosing it
So for a
hard.
few, first
I've used this before and I've always done the one pad
for 20
over
days.
time because it's not as aggressive or concentrated.
Right.
Any other questions?
Doesn't it drive the bees out? I've got used.
Yes,
It just drives just about every bee out of that hive.
yes, it can.
And
They'll be like boarding when they get hot, but this is driving them out because the concentration is high.
yeah,
And
vapors.
And the vapor goes down dramatically after the first 3 days. So, but it's very effective at killing mites. That's for sure.
Russ, you're right about taking out your entrance reducers to get more airflow in, so that's very important. But if you want to leave the insert into the screen bottom board or run solids, because it's heavy, and if you don't, it's just all going to leave out the hive and not be effective. So I think they recommend leaving your insert in when you're using the formic if you're running the screen bottom board.
Some of the additional information I saw about that, if you had a hard board on the bottom, they recommended putting shims in it to get it up so it's attracting more air in. And then secondly, they mentioned putting more frames of either brood, well, not brood, but your supers on top to give it more room to expand. And they also mentioned if you have a top, in the top of your cover in the back, the little square that bees can go in and out, they recommended leaving that open as well. So I just took the information from there.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, there was something called Max, Mighty Way Quick Strips,
Yes,
made by the same company, Nod.
yes,
Any information on that?
none.
No. And if you go to their website and look up Max,
That's the next.
it's not there anymore. If you do a Google search, you'll find it, but then when you try to get there to their website, apparently they've done away with the Mighty Way Quick Strips, and they're only selling the Formic Pro now. So,
The only reason it was there was because Susie asked me to do the presentation that was already included in the data, so I just left it there.
Thanks for doing it.
But thank you very much, appreciate it.
The Pro was an improved formulation. I think it has a 2-year lifespan.
Yeah, at the very front, it says that it's got 2 years stability.
But the My Way quick strips did not have that lifespan.
So it decomposed quicker? Or
Presumably.
whatever?
So that was why they improved the formulation.
Yeah, good to know. But it's not available anymore, as you just said, right?
Right,
Oh.
My Way quick strips. If you get it, it's because some vendor had a whole stack of them. But now it's not making them anymore.
So we need that for
And it's
next year, so
expired,
somebody
it's
else can
expired.
cover for it.
Yeah.
Look good on there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Damon Ireland. So Damon's going to talk about Naroa. Unfortunately, Damon has a pinched nerve, and he's not in a great deal of comfort at this point in time. And he's planning on going to Philmont in 2 weeks. So he's like freaking out a little bit because that Philmont, for those who don't know, is like it's Boy Scouts, and you're hiking for days. And days and days. I did it 50 years ago, and it was a blast. All right, so Naroa is a EPA-registered RNA-based treatment. Instead of killing the adult mites, which is what we're doing with most of the other treatments, Naroa goes against, it's like birth control for mites. That's really what it is. So you put this stuff in, the mites can't reproduce, which knocks your mite count down. It doesn't harm the adult bees, it doesn't bother the queen, it doesn't bother the larva, it's safe for the bees, according to the manufacturer. And based on what I've seen from, or hearing from people that have used it, seems to be true. There are no temperature restrictions, you can use it at any temperature. So you could put it on in the winter, you could put it on in the deep of summer. It's a long lasting type of application, and it can actually help for up to 18 months. Again, how can you tell when a cell's been lying? When their lips are moving. So, it says 18 months. Is it true? I don't know. But as people start using it, we'll learn more and more about it. One important note, it's not for use during the honey flow. If you've got a honey flow going, you can't be using this stuff, which means you don't want to put it on in spring. So you use it during not honey flow periods. All right, that's the Naroa, and I think that's all on that one. So next slide. So next is Howard, going to talk to us about Thymol.
All right, Thymol based. So this is the Apogard. You can buy it in a single little tin. It's just one treatment. This is obviously a whole lot of treatments. Check the expired date that's on here somewhere. I think it was for a couple of years. This is $150 at Forest Hill, so it's not cheap. But this should last me several years. Well, it's going to expire after 2 years. So I find the instructions really confusing because the manufacturer has FAQs as well as instructions, and I think they are not consistent. So I try different things. So one nice thing is you could use it up to 105 degrees, but they suggest reducing the amount if it's over 77 degrees. And of course in July, when is it ever for consistently under 77? So I usually do smaller than 50, but more than 25, and see how it goes. Honey needs to be off, no honey supers on. Enteras need to be fully open because it smells too. But I've never used a vaporizer with it. I just use my leather gloves on it, and I've never had any trouble. It doesn't hurt you, I don't think, to get on it. But I've had variable results. Go to the next slide and see what you see. What I don't know if you can see that very well, but this is all propolis with the bees. How many thousands of bee trips was that propolis on a glob of the stuff? They don't like the smell. So what I do is to take the honey off. On the top of the hive, I put a shim. It's the same shim I use in the winter for feeding. And I put the card that comes with it. A syringe comes with it, so you can suck up and measure 50 grams. And I put 50 grams on there and close it up. As I pointed out, I find the instructions confusing. I swear that the FAQs are different now than they were a year ago. Anyway, next slide. Oh, that was it. Is that me?
Yeah, well, it's thymol.
Yeah,
And
okay.
you hear about the Happy Life Bar.
Yeah.
That's just the Apibar manufacturer's answer to thymol. It's thymol, and it has the same.
Right, you put the little tabs around. But one of the things I like about this is it's very easy to adjust the dosage. And I use it on Dukes. I put a small amount in. I don't know what else to say about it. Any questions? That was vague enough, wasn't it?
You showed that little round spot, white spot, look, you said it was propolis?
That was propolis all around, the white stuff was this.
Okay.
And then
So-
the bees put propolis all around it, trying to contain the smell.
Gotcha.
Do you have PPE gloves?
I haven't been.
The answer to that is yes.
Howard's 27.
Yeah, I'm 27 years old. I have the leather gloves. You know, some little, but you're putting this in the syringe, and you're putting the card on, and you're putting it onto the card from the syringe. Or you open up the single thing. So you're not really touching it.
Temperature requirement?
105 or below.
But not below.
Well, you're not gonna use it when it's 50, but no, yeah. Or above, I think 50, something like that.
They've got to get in contact with it and spread it around. so
They
people-
don't like the smell, so they take it
They'll
out.
just be in cluster, right?
It'll disappear as they take it out of the hive and spread it around.
Right.
So interesting history to thymol. Back in the early days before we had mites, we used thymol for trachea mites. That's how they discovered that it also treats for varroa mites as well. So it was an early product used in the 80s that's carried on to today. I'm not sure exactly 100% how it affects the mites, but most mites it affects. It was used for the trachea mites because the thymol would open up their air passageways. You know, they don't breathe through their mouth, they breathe through the pores in their body. But it would open those passageways up and the mites wouldn't be as restricted. They still had mites, but it wasn't as restricted. And then, like I say, it evolved right into the varroa world that we live in today.
And it is considered organic.
Sure.
And if you have boxes that have brood in them and you treat, and then next year you have honey in it, you don't have to worry, according to Randy Oliver, you don't have to worry about that honey being tainted, which I would not do with some other hard chemicals. Oh, yeah.
So one note, when you're using any of these acid-based, whether it's the formic acid or the oxalic acid, you might want to have some baking soda on hand, or maybe a mixture of baking soda and water, because baking soda will neutralize acid. So it's not just to wash it off, but you're using that baking soda to help neutralize it, which can make it a little bit better. Anybody using HopGuard 3? Anybody have any experience with it at all? Okay, because it showed up as, oh, this is something that's, when I first started, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, it was, the word in the club was don't use it. HopGuard 2 doesn't work. And then they came up with HopGuard 3, but the people that I talked to, have basically said, no, it doesn't work. So I have no idea if HopGuard works or not. So anyway.
Wait till HopGuard 4.
Wait till HopGuard, yeah, it's true. You want to go to the even numbered versions, right? No, that's Windows. No, sorry. And it's the odd number versions that work. All right, so oxalic acid. we'll talk briefly about that. So lots of different ways of putting oxalic on. You can use the spoon with a car battery. It's probably the cheapest method of applying treatment to a hive. Actually, a cheaper one than this is the hypodermic needle up here, or the injector with sugar water and oxalic acid mixed into it, and that's a oxalic dribble. So what do you need to buy for that? You need the oxalic, you need a pair of gloves, you need the syringe, and you need some sugar water. So that's probably the cheapest treatment that you can get. Then you can get up into the slightly more expensive methods, which would be this monster here, which is the InstaBat. Mine happens to run off of DeWalt batteries. You can get them with different, if you like Ryobi, fine. You can buy it with the Ryobi batteries. And it starts heating up immediately, and once it gets up to temperature, you take your little plunger with the oxalic in it, shove it in here, hit the top, and off this stuff comes. So,
Yeah,
say
take the
again?
battery out. It's hot.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's not. It's actually off, even though the temperature was reading. It was actually not turned on. But thank you. So, some of the things that you should have, just like the others, if you're using oxalic acid and you're using vaporization, they say you've got to have at least the respirator. Well, I'll go with, I don't like my eyes getting screwed up, which is what Howard is holding up.
I use an eye shield, a separate shield.
Yeah, an eye shield separately than the respirator, that's fine. I go with my old-fashioned full combat gas mask, military, with the Israeli carbon filter, and I've even got my glasses installed in them, so yeah. You definitely want to protect yourself from this stuff. If you get a whiff of oxalic, you'll know it. Who here has gotten a whiff of oxalic? How many of you still are missing half a lung? Yeah, it's some tough stuff. So when you use it, you do have to be careful. I'm here to tell you that, I'm not here to tell you anything. I'm here to say that if you are using wood bleach, that's not an approved treatment for bees. There is Apioxyl, which is a heck of a lot more expensive, and that is approved for use with bees. So you should be using the approved. You should never, and I don't know who would do this, but you should never get a giant bag of oxalic acid. Obviously, this is Apioxyl because I wouldn't use wood bleach. So just saying.
You're not using the wood bleach to kill the mice. You're using it to clean the inside of your...
Thank you. Yes, I'm bleaching the inside of the hive. That's what I'm doing. Thank you very much. Next slide. An offshoot, please. Yeah.
Do you have any experience with that RTU?
With the
RT,
Ready to use.
ready to use? No, not yet. Thank you. I meant to have a slide on the RTU. Go back one again, just so we're back on oxalic. The ready to use comes. It's prepackaged. The bees tend to. The thought process behind it is they use it and just don't throw it away. It has a better spread capability or capacity. That's my understanding.
it has a different carrier,
It's a different carrier.
not sugar.
Stronger too.
Right, not sugar.
I think it's stronger too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
yeah.
Stronger
I mean,
formulation. Well, you can up your formulation if you like.
yeah, you can up your formulation to get 3% or 10%, whatever it is you want.
It's a 6.
6? Okay. So with my little vaporizer here, the part that comes in that has the oxalic in it, I can adjust it up to, I think it's 4 or 5. And then so when I hit the plunger, it's blowing in that much oxalic. I probably won't go higher than 2 just based on my experience. But yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. And some of it, unfortunately, is still trial and error. Any other questions? I thought I saw a hand over here. Okay, we'll go on to Viroxan. So Viroxan is also oxalic acid. It's an extended release. They're these cardboard strips that you fold in half and hang over the frames. The problem I have had with it, and several people have said the same thing, is when you hang them over the frames, underneath that strip, the bees are not, first off, if there's comb there, they're actually taking the comb away. If there's no comb there, they won't build comb underneath the strip. I have seen someone cut the strip in half, put a toothpick through it, and hang each half of the frame, or each half of the strip between the frames. And I didn't try that. I didn't see that until just recently on YouTube, of course. So, so this is oxalic. These fiberboard strips have oxalic acid and glycerin on them, which I guess you could make yourself, which is the shop rag thing that Randy Oliver was talking about years ago. This, again, manufacturer says it's highly effective at keeping varroa mites low. That might be true, but I know from my experience, and George had the same experience, and somebody else out here had the same experience, it didn't do a knockdown. So if I've got a high mite count and I throw the strips in, it's not going to knock them down, but it might keep them from going more than they've got. So if you're going to use them, I think they're more of a maintenance treatment rather than a knockdown treatment. Like oxalic acid vapor, that's a knockdown. You pull that bottom tray out of your hive, if you have screen bottom boards, and check on it a day or two later, you're going to find it covered with mites. So, yeah.
Just to highlight the different beekeepers, different experience, Carissa had a knockdown with it.
She did get a knockdown. The manufacturer's rep said it was a knockdown treatment. I didn't experience that. I used an entire pack on like 10 hives last year, and it didn't knock them down. Yeah.
Does oxalic penetrate the brood cap?
It does not. So it's why you have to do if you're doing oxalic vaporization, you're going to think about a drone is uncapped from day 10 until day 24. So you have 14 days where you've got uncapped drone brood. That's kind of your quote worst case. So in my mind, I'm going to say, let's treat for about 16 days. So I'll come in every 3 to 5 days and vaporize those hives to make sure that I've got complete coverage from every uncapped brood to every newly emerged bee.
Shoot for 3 days.
3 days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's certain, the effectiveness of oxalic acid, plummets after
Does
30 days.
does plummet, yeah.
So shoot for the 4th day, go 3 days, hit it on the 4th day.
Yeah.
Go 3 more days, hit it on the 4th day after that.
Right. And again, some of it is not the bees, it's the beekeeper. If you're out of town or you're unable to get out to those hives, you might have to go 5 days. But if it's a choice between I'll do 3 or 6, do 3. So you're treating it a little bit more often. All right.
Cultural approaches, I actually had to look that up after I agreed to speak about it. And basically what it is how we manipulate the genetics for varroa resistance. Now after hearing everything you just heard here, the chemicals and the science labs and everybody becomes an alchemist, and especially the full face respirator was great. That's something you want to put on your honey stand, and then enjoy written underneath of it. Everybody loves treating for mites. I do not. I am a treatment free. I've been treatment free for, this is my 4th year now. Been doing well. It's not for everyone. Okay, so treatment free is essentially, it's not, I'm still not doing things to steer the mites from breeding, but I'm not putting unknown chemicals or chemicals that hurt me into my hive. That was really my big thing. Yeah, a couple strategies for not treating: live or let die. There's some people out there that bees in a box. If they live, they live. It's not, it's not great. Go back. There's 4 things there. Selective breeding. That's what I do. And again, that's harder work than treating. Most of this, a lot of the stuff that I do is harder than just treating. We've got
play the numbers. There's several untreatment guys that just live on swarm catching. They keep 80 hives throughout the season. 40 of them die in the fall and spring. They do splits. They get back up to 80 by honey time. Get their honey, let them die. You know, it's a rinse and repeat. But you got to have the room to do 80. 40 to 28 hives that you don't mind losing. And if you're not comfortable with losing bees, that's not the way you want to do it. And brood breaks. George will talk about brood breaks, another effective way of steering or modifying the reproduction of mites. Next slide. Live or let die. Do nothing. Hope they live. It's great. If they do, great. Then, if not, buy southern packages in April, harvest in June, rinse and repeat. Not the way we want to do it. That's not the way we promote it as a club. But just letting you know, there are a lot of people out there that do it. You figure you get a honey crop, 100 pounds of honey, or even 80 pounds of honey is $800. A package is $130. Get your $800, spend $130, put it, repopulate in the spring, rinse and repeat. Next slide. Selective breeding. Oh, there's a little caution thing there. Choosing the best of the best. This is the route that I take. Next slide. So I do three big assays. And again, this is work. This is a lot of work. It's not for everyone. It is for me. I do a Arvo test. I look for mites underneath the capped brood. I actually open up 100 mites, or 100 caps, literally just with magnifying glasses. Pull out 100 pupae, looking for mites. If I see breeding mites, that's a hive that I don't want to breed from. I'm not going to take those genetics because they don't have the ability to control. They have other qualities that may be good, but the quality I'm looking for is their ability to control the mites. That's the gold standard for queen selection. Next slide. UBO. I got the website up there. It's a new kid on the block. She discovered she was working with a USDA grant, and they discovered that bees have the ability to smell. Obviously, pheromones is how bees communicate, but they're able to smell either stress pheromones or something of that nature that the worker bees will check, and that's usually the pheromones that are released, whether the larvae is dead, it's got odor, or they're stressed. The bees will open it up and look. That's not necessarily for Varroa specific, but there is some correlation. That's more for hygienic behavior, because usually bees that score high on UVO can sense a dying or sick larvae as well, whether it's Varroa sensitive or not. It works with different alleles of the genome of the bees, but there is some parallels to Varroa resistance and hygienic behavior. Next. My personal favorite, because liquid nitrogen is just fun to play with, is liquid nitrogen testing. It was originally started in Australia. It wasn't, and again, it's not a Varroa specific, it's for hygienic behavior. They're looking for, and it's the brood. The brood is looking for something wrong underneath of that capping. Any bee can figure out there's something wrong if it's uncapped, but the sensitive bees look for things that are underneath the cap, whether they're distress signals, distress pheromones from the larvae or pupae. This is a fun test. This is a 24-hour test. You have 3-inch tube. You pour liquid nitrogen in there. It freezes the brood underneath the cappings. So if you're looking at it, or the bees are looking at it, once it thaws out, it looks like regular brood. But 24 hours later, you see the slide on over here. That's what they do. That's a hygienic hive, a very hygienic hive. They noticed that they were able to sense that all those bees were dead. They uncapped it, removed them all, and actually by 24 hours, most of them were laying back in them already. So that's, in fact, there's Hiroshi. Hiroshi over here. I think he's here somewhere. He helped me out with this liquid nitrogen day. That's him pouring. In fact, he got a little sloppy, poured liquid nitrogen all over the frame, and they removed everything off of that frame. So that's the fun one that I do. Next slide. Playing the numbers, just like I said before, you got 20 plus colonies, just keep doing your splits. Develop a high amount of hives, pull your honey off, you'll have tons of honey to sell. If they live in the spring, that's fine. If not, and make sure you gotta tell everybody you're treatment free and it's stupid to treat. Because everyone who practices this way, that's what they do. Next slide. Brood breaks. I'm going to briefly touch on this, but the top, this is from the Randy Oliver. This is actually on Scientific Beekeeping. This is a fun little thing to play with. It's free. You go to Scientific Beekeeping, he's got this downloadable Excel. All right, not mine. Downloadable Excel file that you can plug in a bunch of different numbers. When you treated. This is also works for treatment or brood breaks. You can plug in when you treat it, and you can tell it. Is your hive prolific? Does it make a lot of brood, a little bit of brood? You can add all these variables in there to cater to your hive, and plug in the numbers, and it'll tell you basically where your brood's going, where your larvae is, where your mite breeding is, and how many mites you should have in your eyeball watch. The top one is a do nothing. If you look at the chart here, this blue line is your mite washes. Around September, you're going to have about 55 if you do nothing, and then it crashes, and then it's dead. This is brood breaks. This is 3 brood breaks. One in April, one in June, one in August for 15 days. Your bees make it. That's just a standard. Every hive's a little different. They're just like kids. Some are better than others. But just on an average beehive that Randy Oliver plugged in, it's semi-prolific. It lives in the middle of the country, our region, et cetera, et cetera. You do 3 brood breaks. You made it through the hard times, and then next year you do the same thing. Very effective method. I do it occasionally, just because it's good to see a brood break, and you see these sheets of brood, these solid sheets of brood. But in the spring you'll see them, and then you'll see them start to dwindle off. It's not that your queen's doing worse, just that during the honey flow when bees bring honey back, the foragers just drop it off right in the brood chamber. The nurse bees take it from the brood chamber and move it up to the honey supers. In that interim, while they're dropping these, while they're plugging the cells up with honey during a flow, if she's laying on that frame, it'll look like a shotgun pattern, but realistically, that cell was most likely occupied with either honey or pollen during the flow. But with a brood break, that'll clear up the frames. And then she'll lay those whole frames out again, and you get these nice sheets of brood again. Really cool stuff. Next slide. Nope, not mine. So anyway, I'm just going to wrap it up. Mite testing, mite washes. Everybody should have their own mite washers. I think the club made some. I prefer the commercial ones. These are made from an Australian outfit, which is interesting because they were making these before they had mites. But Cell makes these ones, and they're commercially available through Van Lake. All your major supply houses carry them. But what's cool about these, I use Dawn dish detergent. It's a lot more gentle on your hands than, you can wash an oily duck with it. But alcohol kind of dries out my hands and stuff like that. So, and I'll carry a bottle of the liquid with me. So when if I'm testing, I'll do it comes with a little scoop, your 300 scoop. I pour my liquid over it, let it set, and then I just because I make crap all the time, and I record a lot of data. I do data recording on everything. So I made this. It does it for 1 minute, except for it's probably got dead battery, and it'll run for 1 minute, and then I can do that on every hive. So this way I have a baseline, and I don't know if did I do it for a minute, did I do it for 80 seconds or not. So I run 2 of these while I'm doing my mite testing days. What's cool about these are good to also have with you. If you're storing your queen while you're doing your test, you can just scoop her off the frame. She's locked in there. You can continue about doing your inspection. When you're done, take this off, dump her back in the hive. See, these are great. The older ones, the yellow ones, did the same thing.
Another good reason to not use alcohol.
What's that?
Another good reason to not use alcohol.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're residual. I haven't used alcohol in years. When COVID hit, the availability of alcohol plummeted, and then Randy Oliver, Scientific Beekeeping, said, started testing other liquids, antifreeze, starting fluid, stuff like that, and he found that the Dawn dish detergent, 1 teaspoon per gallon, has the same effectiveness as far as washing the mites off. And I also have done my own testing, just because even though you see it and people tell you about it, I'm one of the guys that I need to do it too, just to make sure. So after I did a mite wash, I would take those bees and wash them in alcohol and see if I got any more mites off of them. Because obviously if there's any mites left from the Dawn dish detergent, and I also did the other way. I would take them in alcohol, wash them, and then go to the Dawn dish detergent. And if I had one residual mite from either way, it was very rare, but they were pretty much in correlation with each other. Go ahead, what's up?
Does the Dawn make it harder to do it, or is it like soapy, you got bubbles, and is that gonna make it harder?
Well, so it does. It does. Depending on your concentration, obviously. But so once it's in a 1 gallon jug, I fill the 1 gallon jug. When you're pouring it in, I pour it into there. The suds really don't matter because you're looking at the bottom. You're looking for the mites that fell. You're not looking for any floaters. So yeah. And after I don't reuse my liquid because it's Dawn dish detergent and it costs less than a penny to make. I just do the whole out the weeds. And then when I do my next sample, I like the nice clean semi-blue water. After you do about 3 or 4 washes, it starts turning green and you get bee parts and shit in it. So yeah, I just use new liquid every time. If you're reusing it, yeah, it's not good.
For one, it's not.
No, they sink. And really, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to break the surface tension, so the mites that get separated sink to the bottom. If you do it, you can do it in regular water, but the bees will actually float. I mean, the mites will float, and they don't all dislodge. So I encourage mite testing all the time. When you're doing a hive inspection, you got your mite tester and a gallon of fluid. I mean, scoop, make sure you know where the queen is. 100%. Make sure you know where that queen is. Don't just randomly, because she does the same thing that every other bee does in a mite wash. Die. It's 300 bees. If you're struggling to kill 300 bees in your hive, it's probably a goner anyway. So the 300 bees that sacrifice for the colony is worth knowing. Is it a tell-all? It is not. It's like blood pressure. It gives you an idea that, okay, things are kind of good here, but it's not going to tell you the exact how your heart's doing. But yeah, I encourage a lot of mite testing. First line of defense. You start getting high mite levels, you'll see it gradually. The other thing is right after a brood break, you'll also after a brood break, you'll also find you'll get high mite levels because now all the mites are phoretic and they're the ones you're looking for. So be careful with false positives. Read up on it, and that's all I got for as far as treatment-free goes. And again, don't do it unless you know what you're doing. If anybody has any questions outside of this meeting, feel free. My contact information is on the website, under the resources, and I happily help figure out what's going to work best for you. All right, go ahead.
How much dishwasher fluid are you using for gallons?
What's that?
How much dishwasher fluid?
1 tablespoon. 1 to 2 tablespoons per gallon.
1 or 2?
Yeah, it varies. So I actually got the 1 gallon jug of Dawn out in the garage, and I keep distilled water. I use distilled water simply because it doesn't grow shit.
So you have to use distilled water to do?
No, you do not. But when I'm storing water out in the garage, unregulated with temperature and everything, I keep distilled water because its tendency to grow algae and stuff like that is very low. That's the only reason I use distilled water.
Yeah, I'm used to alcohol, so I'm...
Yeah, no, you go to Scientific Beekeeping, he's got a whole write-up. It's great. I keep a gallon of distilled water, and really what I do is I'll pour the water in here, and then I'll take that gallon jug and just give it a squirt, and then I scoop my bees in it. So it's a scientific squirt, and I feel pretty good about it. I do very well treatment-free, but it is not easy. It would be a lot easier for me to be comfortable with just putting a respirator on. You know, before treatment-free, I was an oxalic acid guy. I swore by it. It was the best thing on the market. It was cheap. It obliterates mites. And I would do it at night when all the bees were in. I'd go in there at night, close up the hive, and just shoot as much oxalic acid in the hive as I could. Was it right? No. But did the bees live? They did. But now that I'm older and wiser, that's not what I do. All right. Thanks, everyone. Any other questions? Oh, no, that's not a question. That's a high five. All right. I'm out. Thank you.
Raise your hand if you're treatment-free. 1. Raise your hand if you want to be treatment-free. Not many. Raise your hand if you're okay with all the chemicals you're using. Yes, okay, so this is this is America, right? Like, chemicals work, you know, and I'm not here to badmouth chemicals. I'm just here to sort of say that there's an alternative way of doing things. And we don't hear about it this much in America because we're driven based on what is in the market, right? Which is chemicals, and the chemicals are very effective. But you have to remember a few things. As Don Coates always said, how sick is normal, right? So your goal is not necessarily to get rid of all the mites. You will never Ed has mites in his hive. I'm sure if I went over there and washed enough bees, even in his best, most hygienic colonies, you're going to wash some mites.
That's right.
Correct. Not many, but they're going to be there. So is 100% what you need? Do you really need Formic to blast every single mite in the hive? And it doesn't even do that anymore. Mite Away Quick Strips was a great product. Formic Pro is an okay product. They took the amount of formic acid in it and made it lower. I don't know why, but they did. And you can tell it, right? When you open up a pad of Mite Away versus open up a pad of Formic Pro and you hold it up to your nose, there's a difference. So, I don't know, you know. Where am I going with this? I don't know.
No one knows, George.
No one knows.
Where are you going with this?
I don't know. I'm just trying to say that you're trying, as Ed showed to Randy Oliver, how many people have been to Scientific Beekeeping and read something on Scientific Beekeeping? About half of us. The other half need to go, honestly. You know what I mean? If you're a beekeeper, even if you're not a scientific beekeeper, even if you don't care about the science behind what we're doing, it's worth a read, right? So if you haven't been there, go to scientificbeekeeping.com. He's probably got a month. You could probably be on that site for a month and still not read everything on it. Randy Oliver, you know, he's spoken at our conference. You know, he's a practical beekeeper, but he also likes the science. So it's a nice blend of things. So those of you who are more practical, you'll get some value out of it too. But if you notice his curve, all the idea is that we're trying to do is flatten that curve. You're trying to keep your mite levels below a threshold so they don't cause your hive to get sick, basically, right? So that's why we do mite washes, to know what kind of a snapshot of what the threshold is. Most of us think if your mite levels are less than 2%, your hive is going to be okay. But it's less than 2% on serial measurements. You know, what people do is they check it in June and July, and they say, oh, I was 1%, my mite levels were good. And they only checked once, and then their hive dies in the winter. Why? Because mite levels change over time, right? You know, mite levels kind of increase as the season goes on. So your 1% in June is going to turn into a 3% in August, and turn into a 10% in September, and going to turn into a dead hive. So if you want to go down the treatment-free line and keep an eye on it, make sure you do those serial mite checks just to be sure that your threshold's staying low, right? So this is all going in a direction at some point. So thinking that in that line, how do you keep your levels constantly low? Right? I mean, that's the goal. If we could always keep our mite levels 1% or less than 2%, our hives are not going to get sick. So Hiroshi has an idea how to do that, right? Share. Yeah, share how you keep your mite levels less than 2%.
I don't count.
Ignorance
Ignorance is bliss.
He don't count.
Ignorance is bliss.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. I think what I was trying to get Hiroshi to say is he's got this spray.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do,
You want, and this is an attempt to keep your mite levels low, right? The spray. So he sprays his frames.
spray on the bees, and the bee licks, essential oil with sugar. That's it.
And that's his theory, right? Like, so it increases grooming behavior, and they knock off the mites, and your mite levels stay below a threshold, even though he has no clue because he doesn't check. But in theory, that's what they're doing, right? And Ed has hygienic bees, right? So the bees are constantly wandering around looking for mites that are brood, mites underneath the cappings. And if the mites are underneath the cappings and reproducing, those bees will take those pupae out. And that's how he keeps his levels less than threshold. The other way to keep levels less than threshold is brood breaks, right? Carol Stanley, where's Carol? You do brood breaks, right? You're splitting all the time.
I split.
Split. So anyone who's splitting and requeening is doing brood breaks for the most part, right? Because you're making your hive queenless. Ernie's doing this too. He's running nukes. He's making his hives queenless, then adding a cell and waiting for that queen to come back. So there's a period where there is no brood or less brood, right? And when there's less brood, what happens to the mites? They go down because they can't reproduce, right? So the idea is, can you implement brood breaks to prevent mite reproduction to keep your level low, right? So that's the thought. Now this is being done much more common in areas of the world that are operating differently than America's operating, right? So we are the country that uses the most amount of chemical miticides for sure, for whatever reason. But there's lots of areas in the country that are areas of the world that are using less than that. We're all using generally the same bee with the same mite, but they're being more successful using brood breaks. Now, how do you get a brood break?
Take out the queen.
Take out the queen, right? That's the easiest way, take out the queen. Swarming is a brood break, right? So some natural beekeepers let their hives swarm over and over and over again, and that's probably a way to limit mite reproduction, right? Because if the hive is swarming every month, well, you get 3 weeks of brood break between your swarming episodes. So that's a way. You can take the queen out, you can kill the queen, that's a way. Another way you can do it is you can cage the queen, right? So you can take the queen and put her in a cage so she's not laying, right? So if the queen is not laying, there's going to be no brood. And you can do that too. Now, the challenge is like what kind of queen to put her in, like right? So what kind of cages are out there? There's basically two kind of cages in the world. There's cages for introduction of queens, and there's cages for isolation of queens, right? Does anyone know the difference between an isolation cage and an introduction cage?
Bees can get in.
Bees can get in. The difference between those two types of cages is that in the introduction cage, the bees can't get into the cage, right? They basically chew the candy out and they let her out, but the bees can't get in. And then there's isolation cages where the queen can't get out, but the bees can get in, right? So if you're going to cage a queen for 3 weeks, what kind of cage do you want to use? Isolation. Why is that? So she can be fed and cared for, right? The last thing you want to do for 3 weeks is put her in a JZBZ cage and hope she's okay at 3 weeks. She may be, but she may not be. So if you're gonna cage a queen for an isolation, for a brood break, you want to make sure the bees can get in and take care of her, right? The last thing you want to do is put her in a cage where the bees can't get into. So you put the queen in the cage, the bees can get in there, and then they release. Does anyone know what kind of cage that is? There's really none commercially available right now. I mean, they exist. They have the full frame isolators from Better Bee where you put the whole frame in. But that's not really a brood break per se because the bees continue to lay in there. So it makes it a little bit more complicated.
I think the keeper's hive has something.
I'm going to get to it. I'm slowly getting to it.
Well, you can always use a nighthawk cage.
You can use a nighthawk cage. Yes, you can use a nighthawk cage. Nighthawk is a grafting system where you put the queen in the thing and the bees can go in and out. to care for the queen while the queen lays eggs. That's one. Does anyone know any other names of these isolation cages that exist?
No.
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 No. They're Mazzino cage. Anyone heard of Mazzino cage? That's an Italian cage. Anyway, enough said. So this is what I've been doing this year. I made this cage that sits in a frame. So Ed said, I showed this to Ed today, and you know what he said? He said, did you polish that up before you brought it? And I did. Right? So what's really cool about this so far is like, look, can you imagine how clean that cage is? Right? So the challenge right now with a lot of queen cages is that they're plastic, and bees will propolize plastic and not move through plastic, so it's nice to have a cage that doesn't get propolis or wax on it, right? So basically all I do is I throw the queen in here, and basically 2 or 3 weeks later, I let the queen out and I've got my brood break. And the cage is always there. It's sitting on a frame, so I never have to find it. So that's kind of cool. So this is what I've sort of experimented with. Now there's lots of reasons to cage a queen, right? And Varroa is one. You know, some people cage the queen for swarm control, right? The colony's not going to swarm if the queen's in a cage, right? At least it buys you some time, so you can do it for swarm control. Some people do it in the fall to sort of limit your winter bee population size and your food consumption in the fall. But anyway, what's also nice about this cage is how many people have introduced a queen in a JZBZ cage and that queen not take, and they kill the queen? You ever have that happen? A lot of people have that happen. There's lots of reasons for why, but we won't get into them because Mark didn't give me enough time. But what's nice about this cage, you can't see. You can't see. Maybe you can see, but you really can't see because there's only a 1 millimeter difference, is that the top bars are more narrow than the bottom bars. So the top of the cage becomes an introduction cage, while the full cage is an isolation cage, because the bees can get in the bottom but not in the top. So what you do is you just take this separator, throw it in there, put the queen up here, and now you have a introduction cage. So you have basically a way to introduce your bees. Now, is there a reason to take your queen that comes from in a plastic, you know, Mike Joe will give you a queen in a JZBZ plastic cage that you can put in your cage in your hive. Is there any reason to put her in this instead? Maybe. You know, because they're not going to kill her in this, right? So you basically have the ability to slowly introduce her over time. So, and then you can see if they accept her or not, right? So the hard thing about the JZBZ and the candy plug is if you put it in there, you're going to assume that you're going to accept her or not accept her. With this, you have a way to tell. But anyway, I'm out of time, and this is coming. This is coming. This is very popular in Europe. Not this thing, for sure. But this concept's popular in Europe. Tropolalaps, you know, people that are managing tropolalaps, the most common treatment for tropolalaps is brood breaks or formic. You know, the other miticides aren't that effective against tropolalaps. So anyway, why not take advantage of the bees, right? Why not take advantage of the biology and that the mites can't reproduce if they're no brood, and just use brood breaks, you know? So that's all I got, and that's all I got. If you want to talk to me more about this, I'd be happy to, just like Ed. And we're trying to get people to use less chemicals in their hives. So that's all we got. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Susie. Questions about this? Yes, Charlie.
When you have the queen where she can't lay for 2 or 3 weeks,
yes.
Does that have an effect on the queen?
So there's 2 questions I get when I show people this cage. One is Ed's question, like you cleaned that up, right? You know, they're going to propolize that up or build burr comb in it. And I've kind of proven that doesn't happen, honestly. Now, granted, I'm putting this in a brood chamber because that's where you want it, right? Now, if you put this up in the supers where they're storing honey, are they going to do something different with that? I don't know, honestly. But this is not where you put this frame. You put it in the brood nest. And I run singles, so singles brood chambers are relatively clean of any extra honey. So I don't know. So the second question is, what's the harm to the queen of putting the queen in isolation, right? Like when she can't lay. So there's two things that happen when a queen doesn't lay. She loses weight, so that I know. So it's basically the queen will lose about 25% of her weight when you put her in a cage. So, but then she'll gain that weight back in 3 days after you release her. So I don't know why that is. Maybe they're not feeding her much. Maybe it's hormonally because she's not laying. But that's effect number one, is that she'll lose weight. The other concern that a lot of people have, that almost everyone tells me, is like they're going to build emergency cells, right? Like you put the queen in there, and they're going to know that she's not laying, and they're going to build emergency cells, right? But they have a window to do that, right? And then the other thing is when you have it's very easy to know when I have a queen in here because there's like 100 bees in this cage, right? So when there's the ability of the bars and not plastic, and the ability for the bees to go in and out of this, I think spreads the pheromone enough that they don't think they're queenless, right? So they don't build emergency. At least in my experience of 2 years of doing this, I've yet to see a colony build an emergency cell when I put a queen in this isolator, which is a different experience than a lot of people have with isolators, because I think it's because of the amount of bee traffic that goes in and out of this cage and the ability to spread her pheromone, versus some of the plastic cages where if you put a queen bee in a plastic cage and they can't really interact with her, they'll build emergency cells right away, and then you need to deal with them. So that's a long answer to a simple question.
Queens naturally do it during the dirt. They quit laying for a little bit, and they also do it in the winter. So yeah, I think the most critical time is when they're first mated, that the insides have to develop, but after they're developed, you can do the brood breaks, or stop the queen from laying for multiple weeks at a time with no detriment to it.
And it is true, like you'll see that as soon as coming out of a brood break, they clean up that brood. When you put the queen in there for a brood break, they leave the frames polished around her, and as soon as it hatches, they clean up all those frames, and they're completely clean. And when the queen starts laying, it's basically frame and frame and frame of brood, because they had that opportunity to have all that brood emerge, and then they go through and empty out all the cells, so it's a nice clean brood nest. And then it's a great opportunity to add in new frames after a brood break too. Like it's all, anyway, we won't go down that rabbit hole.
So you got a question, Susie?
Because I only get so much
How
time.
long did you say that you would keep her in there for?
Well, there's, you know, if you're doing it for varroa control, right? So there's a couple options, right? So, you know, you could do it for 24 days, right? And let every brood, including the drone brood, hatch out, and then treat it at the time of release, right? You could do it for like 18 to 21 days, right? So you can cage her for 18 to 21 days later, let her out, and then a week later apply oxalic. Or you could apply oxalic before you put her in, leave her in for 14 days, and apply oxalic when you let her out. So it just depends on how long you want to leave the queen in and how much, like, what protocol
What if you
kind
don't
of.
do treatment? Could you just put her in?
Yeah, no, if you don't do treatment, you know,
Still, you can do the Randy Oliver has when you do the brood breaks, it'll give you a relatively accurate estimate of how the mite levels are doing without treatment.
Do you sell those?
Not yet.
You have a question in the back?
That was my question. What's the name of it? Where do you
It's called George's Cage.
I'm taking pre-orders.
As my distributor for these, I don't know what he's charging, but.
So one of the other interesting things, you notice these gaps. So this goes back to mite trapping. I'm taking your frame for just a second here. So when you give them an opening, when you get a chance to get up close and look, you're going to find that these cells are large, 6.4, 6.5 millimeter drone cells versus the smaller 5.2, 5.3 millimeter worker cells. So with this opening here, once they cap that drone brood section, you just take your hive tool, cut that off, or take your hive tool, cut that off, or cut that off, and now you've got mite trapping, a mechanical method of removal of mites.
Yeah, that's the idea behind this frame, is just try to bring awareness of non-chemical options to varroa control, whether or not that's drone brood removal or queen caging for brood breaks.
So Tony and then Susie.
Don't they build more drone comb down below again?
Yes, absolutely. So my method of building drones is I put one medium frame in the brood chamber, and they make the drones, and I just come across every time it's capped, I cut them off. Just don't forget. The same concept is with the green boards, the green frames. They're larger foundation sizes, so they make drones in those frames, and as soon as they're capped, get it out of there and throw it in the freezer and then throw it back in.
It is interesting. Like at some point, they actually will start to draw worker comb instead of drone comb down there, depending the season. So in the spring, they're all drone, and then what you notice is instead of rebuilding drone combs, they'll start to put cups along here and not build drone combs. So that's when they're thinking about swarming, and then eventually they'll build worker comb in there. So it sort of depends on what stage the colony is to how they use that open space, honestly, which is pretty cool. It's really interesting to watch. But these cutouts have their challenges, honestly, which we won't get into today because I only have so much time.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it.
Question real quick. This is probably stupid, but does she get depressed in there, and then does that like affect her? I feel like if
She
she
loses
wants
weight.
to lay and she isn't laying, she would like get really bummed out.
I don't know. Ed's connected to his bees. Do you think the queen's depressed in the cage?
How many drones are available in the hive? No, drones create morale for a beehive. If you keep your 20% drone level up, then you're happy.
Okay.
She does lose weight.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's another side story, why she loses weight. I don't know if anybody completely understands exactly why. There's theories out there, they don't feed her, they don't chase her around. But there's a significant amount of the weight loss that's done in the first 4 hours, which is interesting to me. So they accept her once they release her. Is the queen stressed out while she's caged? I don't know, honestly. I don't know. What I can tell you, this thing is filled with bees, so I don't know if they're trying to get her out or they're trying to take care of her. She's not like alone.
Okay. This just feels sad for her.
And you have a question far back.
Yeah, it's a couple things. One, do you ever use it to suppress swarming or affect swarming? And the second one is honey production. How does it affect?
Yeah, so yes, I use it to prevent swarming this year. This is the first year I've used it for that. And what I did is once the colony started charging swarm cells, I basically put the queen in here for 2 weeks and let her be, and then the colony didn't swarm, honestly. You got to remove the cells, right? But once they start charging cells, it's like they're going to continue to do that until the season's over almost, right? So this is a way to stop that. Now, in theory, the research will show you that if you cage a queen and they're not feeding brood during the honey season, that they'll make more honey, right? So that's the word on the street a little bit. Here's my sense, and it's only a very limited sense, so don't take this over what's out there. My sense is your gain in honey production is you're lost in that hive swarming, more so than gain in honey production from increasing foraging. So what I mean is that the queen, you can prevent swarming. You put the queen in there, you remove the swarm cells, she ain't going to leave, right? So you're not going to lose that bee population and that honey crop off in the trees, right? But I have a feeling, this is just my gut feeling, is that hive, since it's not functioning normally, right, they don't have a laying queen, that they become a little less vigorous about foraging. So I'm not convinced, personally, I'm not convinced your honey crop will increase, but I am convinced the bees will stay in the box. But that goes against people, there's research that shows you caging will increase your honey yield by 10 or 20% by caging the queen. I'm not convinced as much, right? So I'd love to say that and say, hey, put the queen in the cage and you'll make 50 more pounds of honey, but, What do you think, Ed?
Removing the queen will.
Make more honey?
Yeah, I don't know about caging her.
So there's lessons to be there's stuff to be learned still. Yeah. The other thing that people do is that in Europe they cage queens. Believe it or not, they cage queens in September. So they let them make their winter bees. They feed a little bit, let them make their winter bees, and then come middle of September they cage the queen. And the reason for that is because they don't want the bee population to be huge going into winter because they overwinter in a single box. So they cage the queen and then they dump the food on in October. So what that does is the bees can't take that food and turn it into brood, and all that food is stored. So anyway, that's another time that people are generally caging queens in 3 times: one for swarm control, one for varroa control, and another for winter prep. It's all kind of cutting edge stuff. Right now there's no tool, but now there's a great tool to queen your cage. I mean, cage your queen. Queen your cage.
It could be either way. All right. Thanks George.
Mark.
Appreciate it.
High five.
All right. So we just talked about mite trapping. Screen bottom board's another method. Some people hate it. He hates it. I like a screen bottom board because I can pull it out at every inspection and look to see what's fallen down. So I can go in and say, "Oh, look at all those mites. What caused them to fall? Did they just fall naturally, or was it something I did?" Go back one. Thank you. go forward, maybe.
Which one do you want? Do you want his last one?
No, I want the one that was up. That one, yes, that's what I want. So the screen bottom board, you know, it's the natural fall, but if you then throw powdered sugar on there, the last one, you dump a bunch of powdered sugar, shake it onto the top of the hive, that powdered sugar falls through, the bees become more vigorous, and when they heat up, the mites tend to detach. Also, that powdered sugar gets between the mites' suckers and the bee, and they fall. Okay, so that can create a mite fall as well. And so you can go to your screen bottom board, pull it out, you know, dump it into a white container, and throw some water in there, and then you can count the mites. So you can see some of it. Does it give you a mite count? No, it does not. But you can, when you're doing this every 3 days, you're doing an oxalic vaporization. After day, you know, you do the oxalic vaporization. The next day you come back. How many mites are on the bottom board? A ton. Okay, dump that off, put it back in. 2 days later, you do your third day oxalic. Come back the next day, pull it out, take a look. Lots of mites. Go back 3 days later, do it, repeat and repeat. And so in my first couple of years, I would do an oxalic vaporization on every 3 to 5 days until I didn't see any mites on the bottom board. And that was effective. That was that first year that I was able to overwinter my hives by doing that particular method. So that certainly does work. Next slide, please.
What slide do you want?
Next, the next one in the chain.
We kind of shuffled them all
So we
around.
muffed them all up. Okay, so I want, what's next? No, almost. So here's an overview. Yeah, I know it's an eye chart for those of you in the back. So this will be in the chescobees.org documents, meetings. There'll be PDF with this in it. So this is basically comparing all of the various treatments, the only unrestricted EPA approved products. They're all listed here. It tells you the method of application, the temperature range that you can treat them at, which is good to know, and how long they need to be treated, and the important considerations, whether you can use it during the honey flow or not, can you use it, you know, when should you use it, low brood periods, for instance, with oxalic. And there's that Easy Ox, that's the, what was that called? The pre-measured or ready to use, RTU, ready to use. That's the Easy Ox, either the powder or the tablet. Next slide, please. Oh, actually go back one. If you've got a phone, you can hit that QR code. I'll leave it up for just a second. Not so much. Okay, go to the next one. So here's two other technologies or techniques, guides, if you will. So there's a varroa management guide and a decision tool from the Honeybee Health Coalition. Next. What have we missed? What are you using that no one's talked about? Nothing? No one? You want to go eat donuts? Yes.
Yasmin and I, we started using a jumbo brood box and regular brood frames, and they started putting underneath drone cells.
Yes.
And it almost, we were not convinced, of course, but we're thinking it prevented swarming.
Yeah.
And we also had a lot of stuff that we could check for mite count when it was capped and stuff like that. And we cut it off, so we had right away wax.
Yeah.
So there were three things that we really liked, and also the mite count was really low.
Okay, excellent.
I have it only on one beehive, but I wish where I could buy more of these.
Right. So this is, when you say a jumbo hive, you mean it's deeper than a deep.
Exactly.
So there's like another 3 inches, 4 inches underneath where the deep frames are hanging.
Yeah.
Yeah, so plenty of room for them to draw funky comb too, which I assume you get occasionally. Yeah. All right, next slide. All right, so I wanted to talk real quickly about this. Some of you met this guy at the conference. I can't pronounce his name, but he does have an EPA-approved natural metabolite called, it's Might Be Gone. He's out of Malvern. So we went through the multi-year process to get this thing EPA approved. Now he has to go to each state to get approved in that state for use. Pennsylvania is not yet approved, of course. There may be other states where it is approved, but that's one that's coming. So it's a year-round, it's organic for varroa control, and you can use it during the honey flow, which I kind of like that concept.
Mark,
All right.
do you know how it's applied?
I don't.
I saw online, you can buy it now online.
Yeah, you can buy it, it's not approved. Yeah.
And
It's
it
a
looked like
strip
it
that
was,
hangs. It's
Hold
similar
on,
to
hold on.
Verizon. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a spray.
It's a spray, okay.
It looked like that, I don't know.
I don't know.
I thought it was similar to Verizon, that it was a strip that.
A strip that was hung
off.
out? Yeah, we don't, maybe you spray a strip? I don't know. But you can look it up, Might Be Gone. Like I said, the guy that did this is out of Malvern.
And it's an acid. It's I forget what acid it is, but it's similar to like oxalic acid. It's an acid contact, but I blank on which acid it is.
Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, thank you all for attending.